The CIA is involved in a bribery scandal regarding COVID-19. Florida warns the public against getting the vaccines. And Putin speaks out on the persecution of Donald Trump. This is the Vice Signal Podcast. So a congressional oversight committee tasked with finding the origins of the pandemic has released a letter saying that the CIA was involved in a cover-up to manipulate the public into believing that there's no way that the lab leak ever occurred. Coronavirus never, ever came from a lab. And there are certain people out there, including people in the CIA, who want us to forget what they did to us, how the powers that be used coronavirus as a weapon against the American people, a weapon against the public. They use it to seize power. It was the ultimate power grab. It became the largest transfer of wealth in human history as mom and pop shop regular businesses were shut down while large companies like Walmart and all these other ones cashed in, while people lost their income, lost their job, couldn't pay their mortgage, couldn't pay their rent. But Amazon, McDonald's, all these places, they were making billions of dollars. So a lot of wealth transfer, and these people took all types of power with the shutdown, telling you where you can go, when you can go. You can't go to church, but you can go to the liquor store. You can buy weed. You can go to the strip club, but you can't see your grandma on Thanksgiving. They had a vaccine passport saying if you wanted to travel anywhere, you need to get injected with this untested, unproven fluid that we don't know what the hell it was. They had children having to get vaccinated in order to go to school in some states. You wanted to go back to work at your job, you need to get vaccinated because these companies, Big Pharma, needed to make some money. Pfizer, Moderna, them, Johnson & Johnson, they needed to sell this concoction that they brewed up. But they want us to forget about all that. They want people to not think about it. And what they definitely want you to forget about and definitely not think about is how this whole thing started. Don't think about it. Keep it far away from your mind. Don't question the origin of this whole virus. And the origin, what was pushed by the media was the wet market theory, where they said, oh, it was a bunch of dirty, sleazy, disgusting Chinese people over here eating bats at a wet market in Wuhan, China. So allegedly they ate this bat. Next thing you know, people were sick with this new virus, a novel coronavirus. Then the other theory is the lab leak theory, which makes way more sense because down the street from this wet market is the Wuhan Institute of Virology, the only place on earth where this SARS-CoV-2, this specific coronavirus, the only place on earth where it was, and the Wuhan Institution of Virology. Yeah, and when you look at this map here, it shows it's not too far. It's a few miles down the road, across the bridge from the wet market. And they're saying, well, people at the wet market started getting sick with this novel coronavirus. And people say, well, didn't y'all create this novel coronavirus in this specific laboratory right down the street? Well, no, that has nothing to do with it. We know that we have a lab specifically for coronavirus. We have the SARS-CoV-2 in this lab. But no, that doesn't mean SARS-CoV-2 was right down the street. That doesn't mean that somehow, some way, safety standards weren't up to par in this lab, even though they were, and there were reports of it. That doesn't mean that safety standards weren't up to par and someone in the lab took the disease on accident. They probably got infected with it, and they could have went to the seafood market down there, to the wet market, or they could have went somewhere else. They could have went to the store. They were infected. They infected someone at the store, and somehow it made its way to the wet market. But no, none of these possibilities are true. There's no way that it could have originated in a lab where it was created. And you talk about loss of credibility, the World Health Organization and the CDC, these were respected institutions before this whole thing popped off. You look at movies and other places, they used to always call out to these places saying these are the places where the big brains are, where the highest minds are when it comes to diseases and stuff. And if anything happens, if there's an outbreak, a zombie virus or something, anything, we need to look to the World Health Organization and the CDC. But come to find out, these places were just shields for Big Pharma. These places were just weapons, tools for the powers that be to use to further manipulate the public. So the WHO, the World Health Organization, came out and said, Nah, it didn't come from a lab. Just don't believe that at all. It definitely came from a bunch of dirty people eating bats. And how in the hell would the bat contract the virus if it wasn't in the lab? Well, the bat probably got it from a pangolin. That's what they said at first. Then they said, well, maybe it was minks. The minks could have given the bat the virus. Maybe it was even a house cat. It could have been a house cat. Who knows? But somehow, some way, a bat contracted it, and we guess that it made its way to the market and the people ate it. It could have been anything in the universe. This virus could have come from anywhere in the universe except for the lab. And now they're saying it's from raccoon dogs. They're saying, well, it wasn't a bat. We said it was a bat, but the bats weren't involved at all. We think that maybe you guys should consider the idea of the possibility that perhaps somehow it could have come from raccoon dogs. Are you buying that one? They're saying now that somebody possibly, maybe, could have smuggled in infected raccoon dogs to the wet market and they ate them. And that's how this whole thing popped off. But it wasn't the lab. Anything but the lab. But now we have a CIA whistleblower, a senior ranking CIA official. He's gone to Congress. He's gone to the Senate, this oversight committee, who's looking into this. And he's spilling the beans. He said that the CIA had a team. It was a 7-man team of analysts. And they said there were several scientists on this team. We don't know the exact makeup of the team, but allegedly there were several scientists on the team. And he said this team was tasked with investigating the origin. 6 of these men concluded that it was a lab, and the 7th and the highest ranking guy on the team said, nope, it wasn't a lab. It was of zoonotic origin. It came from some type of animal. So allegedly, according to this whistleblower, the CIA bribed these other men, the 6 people on this team, to change their positions. So when they disagree with the high-ranking official on their team and they all turned in their reports, apparently the CIA gave them a monetary incentive to change and to join the club and say there's no way it could have came from the lab. And now you had a Senate, the Congressional Oversight Committee. They're saying, look, we need everything. We need all the documents because you guys were so vague in your report. We need to see everybody who was on the team, everybody they interacted with, and we need a pay history. If you gave them any bonus, any money that you've given these guys, we need a detailed history of everything because we want to see exactly what the hell was happening here. And let's take a look at this letter that the Senate sent to the CIA Director, William Burns. Director Burns, we write in response to the whistleblower allegations recently disclosed by the House Select Committee on the Coronavirus Pandemic and House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence related to the Central Intelligence Agency's investigation into the origins of COVID-19. According to Chairman Winstrup and Chairman Turner, these are the lead guys in Congress who are investigating this origin and trying to figure out what the hell happened. And now they have to investigate the CIA for possibly bribing its own analysts into lying about the lab leak theory. A multi-decade senior-level current agency officer came forward to provide information to the Select Subcommittee and HPSCI regarding the agency's analysis into the origins of COVID-19. According to the whistleblower, the agency assigned 7 officers to a COVID discovery team. The team consisted of multidisciplinary and experienced officers with significant scientific expertise. According to the whistleblower, at the end of his review, 6 of the 7 members of the team believed that the intelligence and science were sufficient to make a low-confidence assessment that COVID-19 originated from a laboratory in Wuhan, China. The 7th member of the team, who also happened to be the most senior, was the lone officer to believe that COVID-19 originated through zoonosis. The whistleblower further contends that to come to an eventual public determination of uncertainty, the other 6 members were given a significant monetary incentive to change their positions. You got full-blown corruption. If this is true, the CIA, we need to see some heads roll. We need to see people in prison because this is a crime against humanity, what they just pulled. These allegations are deeply concerning and raise serious questions about the agency's investigations into the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic. For this reason, we request you provide our offices with the following information no later than September 25th, 2023. So this whole list here, they're just saying everybody you interact with is very specific on who they interacted with. Like all documents, communications regarding the establishment of all iterations of the COVID-19 discovery team. And then down here, all documents and communications regarding the pay history to include the awarding of any type of financial or performance-based incentive financial bonus to members of the iterations of the COVID discovery team. Sincerely, you got Rand Paul. Of course, Rand Paul, he's leading the charge because Rand Paul has been the most vocal about this whole thing because he called BS from jump. He knew this whole thing was a farce. Then you got Lindsey Graham. He jumped in on it. Rick Scott, Ron Johnson. And they even sent it over to the IGs, the Inspector Generals. They're asking for the CIA to come in on September 26th for a hearing because now they're going to interrogate these men. Burns hasn't said anything, but the CIA Public Affairs Office, they released a statement. They said, no, this is impossible. This could never happen. The CIA is all about integrity and doing the right thing. So the CIA has vowed to investigate themselves to prove that this didn't happen. So yeah, we're going to see what happens with this whole thing. And stand on the topic of coronavirus, Florida has taken a stance against the vaccine. So we're going to get into that story. But first, a word from our sponsor, me, the Vice Signal Merch Store. As we discuss today's topics, remember that your values and ideas can be expressed by the things that you wear. Check it out, thoughtfully curated merchandise celebrating traditional values and government restraint. Explore our unique collection starting with the Supreme Style tinfoil hat, a statement piece that embodies our commitment to critical thinking and pushing back against the norm. Make a statement with the Free Trump shirt, boldly displaying the captivating mugshot of the former president, which instantly became the most famous picture in the world. At the Vice Signal Merch Store, we're more than just products. We're a community dedicated to celebrating and defending traditional values. Sign up for promotions and receive 10% off your very first order. Don't miss out on these exceptional items. Embrace tradition, champion freedom, and shop now at tvsmerch.com. So Florida Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo is saying that young, healthy people under 65, don't need to worry about whether or not they get coronavirus. And he's also warning people about getting all of these vaccines and all these boosters, particularly young men under 40. Because when you look at coronavirus, you look at the state of this whole disease, this COVID-19 China virus thing, it's community spread. It's dug itself into our normal list of mild diseases, things that we may see seasonally or throughout the whole year. We've seen this disease. We've seen how it impacts the average person, and the impact is not that great at all. It's not doing anything. In most cases, it's like a mild cold or it's completely asymptomatic. Many people are getting this disease. It'll pass and they'll never know they had it because it was completely asymptomatic, not doing anything, not impacting their lives. But this goes counter to what we've been told by the media, all that fear mongering, what the left has told us. Remember, they told us that if 60% of us got COVID-19 through this herd immunity thing, that the disease was just going to become super weak, and for the vast majority of us, it was going to be completely okay. But then they went back on that because they realized that they needed to sell vaccines. So then they switched and said, you know what? We need a certain amount of people. We need 70% of y'all to get vaccinated with the Fauci juice. Nope, science has changed. We need 80% of y'all to get vaccinated. Then Big Pharma said, you know what? We need to sell more. They said 90%. No. We need everybody to get vaccinated, even unborn babies. We even need to dig up the dead to vaccinate them because that's how we maximize our profits. And there have been a couple of problems with this whole vaccine. First of all, it's been extremely ineffective. They were saying if you get this vaccine, this was the selling point, but they want to revise history. If you get this vaccine, you won't get the disease, nothing will happen, you'll be perfect, everything be good. Then we started getting all these breakthrough cases, and they lied about it, but an undeniable amount of breakthrough cases came. So they had to accept it, and they switched it up. If you get this vaccine, COVID-19 is just going to be mild. If you wouldn't have had the vaccine, you would have went to the hospital and died. But since you got it, now you just have mild symptoms. You see how they switched this? And they switched it to that because it's unprovable. You can't prove whether coronavirus would have been mild or asymptomatic based on whether a person had the vaccine or not, because a person could be unvaccinated and it could be mild and asymptomatic. But they switched this because there's nothing you can do with this wording. It's completely unprovable in both ways that you look at it. And generally speaking, the only people who were largely impacted by coronavirus is the people who actually died were very old people, people like 80 years old, 70 some years old, who were reaching the average life expectancy anyways, or people who already had stuff going on, had a bunch of pre-existing conditions, or obese people, severely obese people, who usually, if they're like that, they always have some type of pre-existing condition. But they manipulated the public to think that everybody needed to get vaccinated or they were going to get impacted by it. They were going to be hospitalized and possibly die from it, even though 99% of people, if you're young, you're under 65 and you're generally healthy, you're going to be good to go. But they didn't like that. They didn't like the reality, so they decided to lie about it. Then you have people pointing to these anecdotal cases. When you point to the aggregate population, what goes on in the general population, they'll say, no, what about this one person over here? This person, they were only 30 something and they died. You got to look at this in an aggregate sense, because first of all, this 30-some-year-old you're pointing to, they could have had something going on you don't know. Or they'll say a family member or something like that. But generally speaking, when we're deciding policy and stuff like that, because people die from chickenpox. So just because a couple of people die from chickenpox, the whole world needs to be in fear of chickenpox? No, you got to look at the aggregate. Almost everybody, over 99% of people who get chickenpox survive. Same thing with this coronavirus. 99% of people are good to go. So there's no need to push vaccines on people. There's no need to push fear on people unless these people are trying to make money. And another problem with this coronavirus thing, and which is what Florida, because the Surgeon General, he just had a meeting. Ron DeSantis was there because this is Ron DeSantis' handpicked guy. He was saying that young men are at a much higher risk for developing myocarditis and cardiac arrest, heart issues, if they get vaccinated. So the option is the medical decision. The risk assessment says you have a young, healthy man. If he gets coronavirus, it's going to be like a mild cold or asymptomatic, and he's going to be completely fine in 99% of cases. But if you give this same man this Fauci juice, you elevate his possibility of developing heart issues. So is it worth it? Why would you risk having these heart issues to attempt to avoid a mild cold? Because you can get this vaccine and still get coronavirus and you'll be fine. But now you have to worry about myocarditis. So why the hell would someone do that? That doesn't even make sense. And like I said, the people who are pushing this on young men, who are pushing this, who are ignoring, they're downplaying the risk of myocarditis and all that because they have a financial incentive. Big Pharma, these companies that create the vaccines, these companies that do the injections, CVS, Walgreens, Publix, all these companies, the DNC, these politicians up there in Washington who are getting kickbacks, who are getting donations from Big Pharma, they have financial incentives to manipulate and lie to people about coronavirus. So what they're going to do is they're going to exaggerate the risk of coronavirus, how terrible it is. They're going to exaggerate the benefits of the vaccine, talking about how great it is. And then they're going to downplay the side effects of the vaccine. So when somebody drops dead from cardiac arrest, people are getting myocarditis and it's greatly impacting their life. These people are downplaying it because, like I keep saying, it's about money. So you're going to hear people from the deep state, people from Big Pharma, these experts, they're going to come against Florida talking about they don't know what the hell they're talking about. This guy's terrible. He's evil. He's trying to kill people. And they're only saying this because they want to keep the public in a manipulated mindset to where the public will willingly go out and get the vaccine so their insurance can pay for it, or they'll pay for it in cash, or they'll go buy these home tests from the gas station. So Big Pharma can make their money. Like I said, Pfizer made $35 billion off of selling this stuff. So of course they're going to keep lying. Of course they want people to stay fearful. They're going to come up with new variants and new vaccines so they can keep making money forever. And then the other people who are going against this are simply sheep and lapdogs for the Democrat Party, for the DNC, because they'll believe whatever they see on TV. But hopefully more and more people's minds are open to what the hell is going on, and they start pushing back against this. In other news, Vladimir Putin, he's speaking about American politics. So he had an interview where people asked him about Trump, what's going on, Trump being arrested, this political persecution, the FBI raiding his home and all that. So let's take a listen to what Putin had to say.
As far as the prosecution of Trump is concerned, this is good for us in today's conditions, because it shows the rottenness of the American system, which cannot pretend to teach others about democracy. All that is happening with Trump is the persecution of a political rival for political reasons. And this is done in front of the public of the United States and the whole world. As far as the prosecution of...
Yeah. So I'm not a fan of Putin. I'm neutral on this whole thing. Not my issue, but all I can ask here is, where's the lie? So let's look at a couple of these comments. So Russia's on Trump's side. Is that surprising at all? So this is CNN, so you're going to find a bunch of leftist shields, a bunch of Russian-hating warmongers in this chat here, because they've been brainwashed by the media. Got a couple of reasons people can't hate the man for speaking the truth. The word rotten should never come out of his mouth unless he's talking about himself. This, my friends, is the biggest pot calling the kettle black in history. Says the guy who actually prosecuted political opponents all his life. Don't be surprised when the GOP nominates Putin for POTUS. So these are examples of the left. This is the thinking of these people. And notice, they're not addressing what Putin actually said about the United States being a banana republic, the left turning the United States into a banana republic, dragging Trump from here to there, prosecuting a political rival, because they know it's true. They know they're doing dirty, scandalous stuff, but they're okay with it because they want to win. They want the decrepit old man to remain president. They want a senile old fool who they can control. And the left, they were always a bunch of shitbags, but recently they became a lot more radical. The people on the far left of this left-wing ideology, they're dragging the entire party to a very dark place. So when you see something like this, when you see what they're doing to Trump, trying to imprison him, some calling for his assassination, they're cheating and rigging elections, because they used to think they were righteous and honorable, because they were saying, oh, George Bush is evil, he cheated the election, he started a war. But Obama came in, had a kill list. He lied about who he is, his origin. His whole origin is suspect, but that's a different video. They're trying to prosecute Trump because they hate him so much. They've controlled speech because after 2016, they realized how critical sites like Facebook, Instagram were to elections, modern elections. So they've decided to take control of these places, which is why they were mad that Elon took Twitter. So they're silencing, censoring people, they're rigging elections, and they're okay with it because this is all they got. This is all they could do to win elections. And now these same people who are corrupt as hell, they're talking trash about somebody else. They're saying that Putin is the pot calling the kettle black. We're talking about a party of baby killers. A party that wants to sacrifice children to demons by castrating them and by pushing them into this LGBT LMNOP ideology. We're talking about people who are sitting on their asses, instigating a war while poor people across the world die for them. We're talking about the same party that if you look at their Twitter bios, all their comments, you listen to them talk, they always talk about Slava Ukraine. And they don't know the history. They don't know that it dates back to World War II, because you had a group of Ukrainians, Stefan Bandera and all of his followers, who didn't want to be part of the Soviet Union. They wanted Ukraine to be its own nation, and they were shields. They were working under Hitler and the Nazis, engaging in murder during the Holocaust. And these people, these leftists in America, sit here and chant Slava Ukraine, the same thing that these people chant during the Holocaust. But they're saying, oh, Putin bad. They're saying Trump's evil. Everybody is evil. They're perfect and righteous. They want to cut penises off of little boys, but they're perfect and righteous. You talk about the pot calling the kettle black. But anyways, we're going to get into Trump's reaction to what Putin said.
I want to ask you about something President Putin said about you this week. I don't know if you've seen it. This was very recent. President Putin said, quote, "We surely hear that Mr. Trump says he will resolve all burning issues within several days, including the Ukrainian crisis. We cannot help but feel happy about it." What do you make of that? Do you welcome his support?
I like that he said that, because that means what I'm saying is right. I would get him into a room, I'd get Zelensky into a room, then I'd bring them together, and I'd have a deal worked out. I would get a deal worked out. It would have been a lot easier before it started. Essentially, for 4 years, I kept them from doing anything. Because, you know what, I will tell you this, I've never said this, Ukraine was the apple of his eye. I said, don't ever do it, don't ever do it. He would have never done it. But again, oil prices. He wouldn't have done it because of me, but oil prices. The prices were so high that he had so much money, so he had all this money to prosecute the war. The one who drove up the prices was Biden.
Given that President Putin has bombed maternity wards, 20,000 kids kidnapped from Ukraine by Russia, mass graves, do you welcome his support, his all but endorsement?
Look, I had a very good relationship with him.
Yeah, this is all full-blown propaganda from Western media. It's Russia hatred type media. They're shaping the minds of the American people with lies about what's actually going on. So I advise people to really dig deep into what's actually going on, because they're creating this thing saying Russia bad, Russia evil, Ukraine is good, Ukraine is the greatest place in the history of Earth. Even though before this whole thing popped off, we all knew that Ukraine was one of the most corrupt countries in the world. So she's over here just doing what they're paying her to do, which is to push propaganda about the war so they can continue to fund it. They can continue to send billions of dollars over there so they can get these kickbacks. The military industrial complex, they're getting paid. They're giving kickbacks to politicians. The media is in on it. The whole DNC is in on it.
And yet nobody was tougher on Russia than me. I stopped Nord Stream 2. You never heard of Nord Stream 2. That was the pipeline until I got involved. I said Nord Stream 2, people that were sophisticated, military people and political people, never heard of Nord Stream 2. I had it ended. The pipeline was dead. Biden came in and he approved it. There was nobody tougher than me with Russia, and yet I got along with Putin. Let me tell you, I got along with him really well. And that's a good thing, not a bad thing. He's got 1,700 nuclear missiles, and so do we. But look, that's a good thing. Getting along is okay, but I got along through strength. And the war would have never happened. The war would have never happened. Now what's happened? It's so bad. The oil price is so high. It's hard to get it stopped. The oil price is so high. When he goes above $50 and $60 a barrel, he makes a lot of money on the war. Now, it's a humanitarian thing. It's a lot of different reasons, but I will get that war stopped.
So now you see how Trump reacted, and he's saying, oh, yeah, I'm glad Putin said it. So the rhinos are out in full swing attacking Trump. They're saying, yep, Trump is Putin's lackey. Trump is in bed with Putin. Trump is afraid of Putin, and Putin is controlling the whole thing. So if Trump ever comes back in power, it'll be Putin deciding the fate of the United States. Let's see what a couple of these rhinos had to say about what Putin said and Trump's reaction. Get it straight. Trump is under indictment because of his conduct. He played with fire and is getting burned. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, a fellow presidential candidate, wrote on X, formerly Twitter, and now his best buddy is coming to his defense. If you're on the same side of Putin, you might want to rethink your position. Putin has now officially endorsed the Putin wing of the Republican Party, wrote former Representative Liz Cheney, a longtime Trump critic. Whatever happened to her? Didn't she spend a year being a lackey for the Democrats and then got obliterated in her re-election campaign, and the Democrats threw her out like hot garbage? Putin Republicans and their enablers will end up on the ash heap of history. Like you? Isn't that where you are? Patriotic Americans in both parties who believe in the values of liberal democracy will make sure of it. Yeah, well, we got some Trump haters. These people, they don't understand that the party has shifted. We no longer have these warmongering neocons who are going to run the Republican Party. So the Senate actually defended Donald Trump in this whole thing. He had a very, very strong Russia policy, the Senate added. He actually provided a lot of support, defensive support for Ukraine. And so I think that the idea that somehow he wants to be buddy-buddy with Putin, I know there are circles that say that, but I don't really see it as being the case. I think he's being strong. So the Senate is finally waking up to his idiotic positions earlier, like how he didn't want to side with Trump on the Democrats' witch hunt. The Democrats are using the justice system as a weapon against Trump, and DeSantis knows it's wrong, but because he's running against Trump, he refuses to take a stance. He wasn't realizing that they'd do the same thing to him. But at least he finally made a common sense position, because we know what's going on here. The warmongers and the rhinos, the neocons, they would love for this thing to continue forever. They would love for the American people to think Putin bad, Ukraine good. Let's give some money to Lockheed and Boeing and Raytheon and keep these people dying over there in Eastern Europe forever. As long as they can line their pockets, that's what they're going to think. And the American people, they're going to decide on this. If you look at the polls right now, Trump is dominating. People knows his stance on this whole war. People knows what he says about Putin. And American people can see through all this rhino noise, all this garbage, and how the left is trying to smear him as being anti-American. But let's move on to another story. Let's go back to New Mexico. Let's go to this crazy governor who went completely off the deep end as she tried to ban guns in the Albuquerque area, her largest area, the largest region, the only region in the entire state that's not sparsely populated. So what was her name? Grisham something, I forgot her name, but the New Mexico governor banned guns. She put in a 30-day moratorium, banning guns, no guns for 30 days. And one thing about this 30-day thing, there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government program. Like we saw the whole 2 weeks of slow to spread shutdown, and it lasted for years and years until the people revolted damn near. But she banned guns under the guise of public health, because these Democrats use this coronavirus public health thing as a power grab, and they were able to do all types of things to people, fearmonger, shut people down, cheated in the election, all types of crap. So now they're trying to use this same thing. Public health. We need to scratch out the Second Amendment. We need to ban guns because of public health. So the law enforcement, the sheriffs, and even the attorney general, they came out and said, yeah, we're not supporting this. You on your own with this. The sheriff said, my police, they're not going to enforce this. If we see somebody with a gun lawfully, we're not doing anything. And her attorney general said, look, if you get slammed for this, if they come after you for this, don't come to me. I have nothing to do with it. So she was standing out there on her own, and she got sued, and a federal judge struck it down. But she wasn't done. She said, you know what, I'm going to write a second one. Then she issued a gun ban for parks and playgrounds. But still, it's illegal and unconstitutional because you don't have the right to ban guns. Now, New Mexico Republicans want her impeached. They're already calling for impeachment, but it's a good try, but I don't think they're going to be able to do it because New Mexico is a trifecta state. They have a blue governor, blue legislature, and a blue Supreme Court. So it's full-blown Democrat. They don't have the numbers to impeach her. House Republicans, the U.S. representatives, they're getting ready to vote to condemn her. They're going to make a public statement and put in a congressional record that she did a very, very bad thing. There's not going to be much done after that because these Democrats are on her side. So she released a statement about all this noise about what Congress is doing or about the New Mexico Republicans. She said, yeah, they're conducting a political stunt against me. They're doing a very bad thing. I want to ban guns, and they're sitting here talking about the Constitution. And like I said, these Dems have defended her. So let's take a look at what these New Mexico Democrats said to defend their governor for violating the Constitution. New Mexico needs real solutions to take on the public safety issues impacting our communities. Calling for an impeachment over a policy dispute isn't a real solution. It's more of the same short-sighted, self-serving blame game that has come to characterize the New Mexico Republican Party. The governor and Democrats in the legislature have been working on common sense gun safety reforms like stripping away the Second Amendment. That's your reform? To make our neighborhoods and schools safer for years. If Representatives Lord and Block, so those are the two lead Republicans who are trying this impeachment, they don't like it, they should offer their gun safety policy ideas. Anything less is disrespectful to the people in this state. So this is the hive mind mentality, because they know this woman went against the U.S. Constitution, stripping away gun rights, which was immediately shot down by a federal judge, but they don't care. And I think that this is an experiment from the DNC. So this isn't her idea. The DNC, the larger Democrat Party, are using New Mexico, Albuquerque as an experiment to use public health as a guise to strip away more rights from people across the country. So if this thing was successful in New Mexico, it didn't get much pushback, then it will move over to California. It will move all across the country in blue areas. Even the red states like Texas, if you look at Austin, Dallas, Houston, they're blue as hell inside of a red state. A lot of these red states are like that. In fact, most red states have blue big cities. So if they can strip away gun rights successfully in Albuquerque, they just push it across the whole country. And the DNC offered her as a sacrifice, saying, well, if it goes south, if it goes sour, then this governor will be shot down and we don't really give a damn. And she's too stupid to realize that she was a damn tool of the larger Democrat Party, because she's a small level politician. But yeah, it would be great to see her impeached, thrown out of office for doing this, because it'd be a good example of these people trying to trample on the Constitution. These people really hate the founding fathers. They're taking down their statues, ridiculing them, calling them racist, trying to take their names off of buildings and organizations, and they want to just rewrite the country in their own demonic leftist point of view. So if you enjoyed today's episode, leave a like, share it, and I'll see you guys next time.